Old rivals return home to follow their dreams, a short audio story. As Sophia Maple stepped off the train onto the weathered platform of Sea Haven, a wave of nostalgia washed over her. The tangy scent of salt hung heavy in the air, mingling with the familiar aroma of freshly baked bread drifting from nearby cafes. Seagulls circled overhead, their plaintive cries echoing the rhythm of the waves crashing against the shore in the distance. The sight of the cobblestone streets and colorful storefronts brought a rush of memories flooding back, the laughter of childhood summers, the whispered secrets shared beneath the starlit sky. With a sense of anticipation fluttering in her chest, Sophia hoisted her duffel bag over her shoulder and set off down the winding path that led into town. The streets were bustling with activity, locals going about their daily routines with an easy familiarity that spoke of generations of shared history. Fishermen unloaded their morning catch at the harbor, their weather-beaten faces creased with smiles as they exchanged banter and tales of the sea. Children raced along the shoreline, their laughter ringing out like bells in the salty breeze. As Sophia made her way through the lively thoroughfare, she couldn't help but feel a sense of belonging wash over her. Sea Haven had always been more than just a place to her, it was woven into the very fabric of her being, a tapestry of memories and dreams that had shaped her into the person she was today. And now, after years spent chasing her dreams in the bustling city, she was back where it all began, ready to embark on the next chapter of her life. Turning a familiar corner, Sophia found herself standing before the weathered facade of her family's old cafe, the Seagull's Nest. The sight of the quaint building nestled against the backdrop of the sparkling sea filled her with a rush of emotion. Memories flooded her mind, the comforting aroma of her mother's baking, the laughter of patrons gathered around the crackling fireplace, the sense of warmth and camaraderie that permeated every corner of the cozy space. With a trembling hand, Sophia pushed open the door and stepped inside, the familiar scent of freshly brewed coffee enveloping her like a warm embrace. The interior was just as she remembered it, rustic wooden tables and mismatched chairs scattered haphazardly around the room, shelves lined with jars of homemade preserves and bags of freshly roasted coffee beans, and a large chalkboard menu displaying the day's specials in colorful script. Behind the counter, a young barista with a shock of tousled hair looked up from his espresso machine and grinned. "Sophia," he exclaimed, his blue eyes sparkling with delight. "Welcome home." Sophia couldn't help but return the smile, her heart swelling with gratitude at the warm reception. "Thanks, Finn," she said, her voice tinged with emotion. "It's good to be back." As she took a seat at her favorite table by the window, Sophia couldn't shake the feeling of coming full circle. The journey that had taken her away from Sea Haven had been one of discovery and growth, but now, as she looked out at the familiar sights and sounds of her hometown, she knew that her heart had never truly left. And as she sat sipping her coffee, watching the seagulls wheeling overhead and listening to the gentle lapping of the waves against the shore, she felt a sense of peace settle over her, a sense of homecoming that she knew would guide her on the path ahead. As the sun dipped below the horizon, casting a golden glow over the sleepy town of Sea Haven, Joseph Kahn stepped off the plane onto the tarmac of the bustling airport. The air was thick with the scent of salt and seaweed, a familiar fragrance that tugged at his heartstrings and filled him with a sense of longing. It had been years since he left Sea Haven for the bright lights and bustling streets of Hong Kong, but now, as he made his way through the bustling terminal, he felt a sense of anticipation building within him, a feeling that he was finally coming home. The journey from Hong Kong had been long and arduous, filled with layovers and delays, but now, as Joseph made his way through the familiar streets of Sea Haven, he felt a sense of peace wash over him. The cobblestone streets were bathed in the soft glow of street lamps, casting long shadows against the weathered facades of the buildings. The salty breeze whispered through the narrow alleyways, carrying with it the distant sound of waves crashing against the shore. As Joseph rounded a corner, he caught sight of the old fishing cottage that had once belonged to his family. The sight of the weather-beaten facade filled him with a rush of emotion, memories of childhood summers spent exploring the rugged coastline, of evenings spent gathered around the fireplace with his family, of dreams shared and aspirations forged. With a determined stride, Joseph pushed open the creaking gate and made his way up the worn path that led to the front door. The cottage was smaller than he remembered, the paint peeling and the windows streaked with salt, but to Joseph, it was more than just a building, it was a symbol of his heritage, a link to the past that he was determined to preserve. As he stepped inside, the familiar scent of wood smoke and brine filled his nostrils, sending a shiver of nostalgia down his spine. The interior was dark and musty, the furniture draped in dusty sheets and the floorboards creaking underfoot. But beneath the layers of neglect, Joseph could see the potential, the cozy nooks and crannies, the rustic charm, the promise of something new waiting to be born. With a sense of purpose burning in his chest, Joseph set to work, clearing away the cobwebs and dusting off the memories that lingered in every corner. He imagined the cottage transformed into a bustling restaurant, its cozy interior filled with laughter and the clinking of glasses, its tables adorned with fresh seafood and locally sourced ingredients. For Joseph, the journey ahead was clear: to breathe new life into the old fishing cottage, to create a place where locals and tourists alike could come together to savor delicious food and share in the magic of Sea Haven. And as he stood in the fading light of the setting sun, gazing out at the tranquil waters of the bay, he knew that the journey ahead would be filled with challenges and triumphs, but that with determination and passion, anything was possible. The next morning, Sophia woke to the sound of seagulls and the smell of the sea wafting through her open window. She quickly dressed and made her way downstairs to the cafe, eager to get started on revitalizing the Seagull's Nest. As she stepped outside to survey the neighboring buildings, she noticed a familiar figure working diligently across the street. Her heart skipped a beat as she recognized the man bent over a pile of lumber. Joseph Khan, she muttered under her breath, a mixture of annoyance and curiosity bubbling up within her. Joseph looked up from his work, his eyes meeting Sophia's. A flicker of recognition crossed his face, followed by a wry smile. Well, if it isn't Sophia Maple. Back to grace us with your presence. Sophia crossed her arms, narrowing her eyes at him. What are you doing here, Joseph? Last I heard, you were living it up in Hong Kong. Joseph wiped his hands on a rag and walked over to the edge of his property. Same could be said for you, city girl. But if you must know, I'm turning this old cottage into a restaurant. Sophia's heart sank. The idea of her childhood rival opening a restaurant next door to her family's cafe felt like a bad omen. A restaurant? Here? Yes, here, Joseph replied, his tone challenging. What's it to you? Sophia took a deep breath, steadying herself. Nothing. Just surprised, that's all. Surprised that someone else has ambitions? Or surprised that I'm the one with the ambition? Joseph's smile was tinged with bitterness. Neither, Sophia shot back. Just surprised you chose Sea Haven, of all places. Joseph shrugged, looking out at the sea. Sea Haven is home. No matter how far we go, it's always there, calling us back. Sophia felt a pang of agreement but refused to show it. Well, good luck with your restaurant, Joseph. Just don't expect me to come by for dinner. Joseph chuckled. Wouldn't dream of it, Sophia. But I do look forward to seeing what you do with the cafe. As Sophia walked back to the seagull's nest, she couldn't help but feel a spark of determination. Joseph Khan might be her neighbor and rival, but she was determined to prove that the seagull's nest was still the heart of Sea Haven. Years ago, Sophia and Joseph had been the best of friends. They grew up together in Sea Haven, sharing everything from school projects to summer adventures. Their families were close, and their bond seemed unbreakable. But as they grew older, competition began to seep into their friendship. In high school, both Sophia and Joseph were top students, each vying for the highest grades and the most accolades. Their friendly rivalry turned bitter when they both set their sights on the same college scholarship. Sophia, with her meticulous attention to detail and relentless work ethic, often bested Joseph in academic pursuits. Joseph, on the other hand, excelled in sports and social activities, winning the favor of teachers and peers alike. The final straw came during their senior year. The town's annual Sea Haven Innovation Competition offered a substantial scholarship to the winner, and both Sophia and Joseph were determined to claim it. Sophia worked tirelessly on a project that showcased sustainable practices for local businesses, while Joseph developed a plan to revitalize the town's tourism industry. When the results were announced, Sophia won by a narrow margin. Joseph felt the sting of defeat deeply. He had poured his heart into the competition, and losing to Sophia, his former best friend, was a blow to his pride. Their friendship fractured under the weight of resentment and unspoken words. Sophia, for her part, had tried to reach out to Joseph, but his bitterness drove a wedge between them that seemed impossible to bridge. After high school, Sophia left for college with the scholarship she had won, and Joseph chose a different path, eventually ending up in Hong Kong. Years passed, and their lives diverged, but the memory of their broken friendship lingered in both their minds. Now, as they found themselves back in Sea Haven, old wounds resurfaced, and the rivalry that had once driven them apart threatened to reignite. But beneath the surface of their animosity lay a shared history and a deep connection that neither could easily forget. The days that followed were marked by a tenuous truce between Sophia and Joseph. Each focused on their respective projects, determined to outdo the other without letting their rivalry get out of hand. Sophia's cafe flourished under her careful management, drawing in a steady stream of customers who appreciated the warm atmosphere and delicious fare. Meanwhile, Joseph's restaurant began to take shape, the once dilapidated cottage gradually transforming into an inviting and stylish establishment. Despite their mutual animosity, there were moments when Sophia and Joseph found themselves working side by side, their competitive spirits giving way to a grudging respect for each other's talents and dedication. During one such encounter, they were both shopping for supplies at the local market, their paths crossing in the bustling aisles. "Looks like you're making progress," Sophia remarked, her tone surprisingly neutral as she glanced at Joseph's shopping cart filled with fresh produce and kitchen utensils. "Yeah, it's coming along," Joseph replied, a hint of pride in his voice. "How's the cafe?" "Busy," Sophia admitted. "But that's a good problem to have." As they continued to shop, the conversation remained civil, each recognizing the other's hard work and commitment to their dreams. It was a small step towards thawing the icy relationship that had defined their interactions for so long. Back at the seagull's nest, Finn noticed the change in Sophia's demeanor. She seemed less tense, more willing to engage with Joseph when their paths crossed. Sensing an opportunity to mend the rift between them, Finn approached Sophia one afternoon as she was preparing a new batch of pastries. "Hey, Sophia," he began hesitantly, "I couldn't help but notice that things between you and Joseph seem different lately. Less hostile, maybe?" Sophia looked up from her work, a thoughtful expression on her face. "I suppose so," she admitted. "It's hard to stay angry all the time, especially when we're both trying to build something meaningful here." Finn nodded, encouraged by her response. "You know, it might be worth trying to find some common ground. After all, you both care about Sea Haven and its future." Sophia sighed, considering his words. "Maybe you're right, Finn. It's just complicated. We've been at odds for so long, it's hard to imagine things any other way." Well, it doesn't hurt to try, Finn suggested. Who knows? You might find that working together could benefit both of you. Taking Finn's advice to heart, Sophia decided to extend an olive branch to Joseph. One evening, as the sun set over Sea Haven, casting a warm glow over the town, she walked over to the cottage where Joseph was finishing up for the day. Hey, Joseph, she called out, her voice tentative but sincere. Can we talk? Joseph looked up, surprised to see her approaching with a friendly expression. Sure, he replied, setting down his tools and wiping his hands on a rag. What's on your mind? Sophia took a deep breath, gathering her thoughts. I know we've had our differences, but I think it's time we put them aside. We're both here for the same reason, to make Sea Haven a better place. Maybe we can find a way to support each other instead of constantly being at odds. Joseph studied her for a moment, his expression unreadable. You're right, he finally said, his voice thoughtful. We've been fighting for so long, it's easy to forget why we came back in the first place. I think we could both benefit from a fresh start. With that, they shook hands, a tentative but hopeful gesture that marked the beginning of a new chapter in their relationship. Over the next few weeks, Sophia and Joseph made a conscious effort to collaborate and support each other's endeavors. They shared resources, offered advice, and even promoted each other's businesses to the townspeople. Their newfound cooperation didn't go unnoticed by the residents of Sea Haven. The once hostile rivalry between Sophia and Joseph had transformed into a partnership that brought new life and energy to the town. The Seagull's Nest continued to thrive, while Joseph's restaurant, now called the Anchor's Rest, quickly gained a reputation for its fresh, innovative cuisine. As Sophia and Joseph worked together, they began to discover the depths of their shared history and the potential for a brighter future. Their old memories of childhood summers spent together resurfaced, and they found themselves reminiscing about the good times they had once shared. One evening, after a particularly busy day at their respective establishments, Sophia and Joseph decided to take a walk along the shoreline, just as they had done so many years ago. The moon cast a silvery glow over the water, and the sound of the waves provided a soothing backdrop to their conversation. Do you remember the time we built that sandcastle fortress down by the pier? Sophia asked, a nostalgic smile on her face. Joseph laughed, the sound warm and genuine. How could I forget? We spent hours on it, only for the tide to wash it away before we could even finish. Sophia chuckled, shaking her head. We were so disappointed, but it was still one of the best days we ever had. As they continued to walk, the conversation flowed easily, their past grievances fading into the background. They talked about their dreams, their fears, and the challenges they had faced since leaving Sea Haven. With each shared story, they grew closer, their bond strengthening with every step. In the weeks that followed, Sophia and Joseph's relationship continued to evolve. They found themselves relying on each other for support, both professionally and personally. They celebrated each other's successes and offered a shoulder to lean on during difficult times. Their friendship deepened, and the spark of something more began to flicker between them. One evening, after a particularly successful day at the Anchor's Rest, Joseph invited Sophia to join him for dinner at his restaurant. She accepted, eager to experience the fruits of his labor and spend more time with him. As they sat together in the cozy dining room, the atmosphere warm and inviting, Joseph brought out a selection of dishes that showcased his culinary talents. Sophia savored each bite, impressed by the creativity and skill evident in every plate. This is incredible, Joseph, she said, her eyes sparkling with admiration. You've truly created something special here. Joseph smiled, his expression grateful. Thank you, Sophia. It means a lot to hear that from you. As the evening wore on, their conversation turned to more personal matters. They talked about their hopes for the future, their fears of repeating past mistakes, and their growing feelings for each other. The connection between them deepened, and they found themselves drawn closer together. As the night came to an end, Joseph walked Sophia back to the Seagull's Nest. They stood together on the doorstep, the soft glow of the streetlights casting a gentle light over their faces. Thank you for dinner, Joseph, Sophia said, her voice soft. I had a wonderful time. Joseph smiled, his gaze tender. So did I, Sophia. I'm glad we had this chance to reconnect. With that, he leaned in and pressed a gentle kiss to her cheek, a gesture that spoke of the promise of something more. Sophia's heart swelled with emotion, and she knew that their journey was just beginning. As the weeks turned into months, Sophia and Joseph's relationship continued to blossom. They supported each other through the ups and downs of running their businesses, and their bond grew stronger with each passing day. The people of Sea Haven watched with delight as their once rivalry transformed into a love story that inspired the entire town. One evening, as they stood together on the shoreline, watching the sun set over the water, Joseph took Sophia's hand in his. Sophia, I've been thinking, he began, his voice filled with emotion. We've come so far, and I can't imagine my life without you in it. Would you consider making this partnership official? Not just in business, but in life? Sophia's heart skipped a beat, tears of joy filling her eyes. Yes, Joseph, she replied, her voice choked with emotion. I would love that. With that, they sealed their commitment with a kiss, their love for each other shining as brightly as the setting sun. And as they stood together, hand in hand, they knew that their journey had only just begun. The future held countless possibilities, and together, they were ready to face whatever came their way. In the years that followed, Sophia and Joseph continued to build their lives together in Sea Haven. Their businesses thrived, their love deepened, and their bond with the community grew stronger. They became pillars of the town, their story a testament to the power of forgiveness, cooperation, and love. As they stood together on the steps of the Seagull's Nest, looking out at the bustling streets of Seahaven, they knew that they had found their true home. And as they faced the future together, they knew that anything was possible. Their journey had been one of growth, discovery, and transformation. They had overcome their differences, forged a deep and lasting bond, and built a life filled with love, joy, and shared dreams. And as they looked out at the horizon, they knew that their story was just beginning. For Sophia Maple and Joseph Kahn, the future was bright, and their love for each other would guide them on the path ahead, wherever it might lead.